You know, weddings are supposed to be one of the happiest times in a person's life. There's excitement in the air, plans being made, dreams about the future. That was how it was for Sarah. She was 24, full of hope, and just weeks away from marrying the man she loved, Mike. They'd been together a few years, the kind of couple everyone thought was perfect for each other. Quiet, steady, just right. But there was one wrinkle that nobody saw coming. It wasn't a stranger or some random drama. No, it came from someone Sarah should have been able to trust. Her Aunt Linda. Now, Aunt Linda was a character. She'd recently gone through a divorce, which, honestly, had hit her harder than anyone expected. But Linda was nothing if not bold. She had this way about her: flashy clothes, loud laugh, the kind of presence you couldn't ignore when she walked into a room. Some folks called her dramatic. Others said she was just full of life. Either way, family gatherings had always been a bit unpredictable when she was around. This time, though, things felt different. The divorce had changed her, or maybe it just loosened her boundaries. She was newly single, and suddenly her flirtatious energy didn't just hover around strangers or casual acquaintances. It started to focus in a place it shouldn't have, on Sarah's fiancé, Mike. Sarah noticed it at the family dinners. Linda would laugh a little too loudly at Mike's jokes, lean in a little too close, or wear outfits. That caught his eye and made Sarah uneasy. At first, she thought maybe she was just overreacting. After all, Linda was just having fun, or so everyone said. But there was this nagging feeling in Sarah's gut that something wasn't right. And as much as she wanted to believe otherwise, Mike's quiet discomfort was hard to miss. That's how it all began, right in the middle of what was supposed to be the happiest time of Sarah's life. The wedding plans were moving forward, but beneath the surface, a storm was quietly gathering. Now, things didn't get better after those. First, uneasy dinners. If anything, Aunt Linda's behavior started to get more obvious, and a lot harder to ignore. At family gatherings, Sarah began to notice how Linda seemed to zero in on Mike. It wasn't just the usual friendly teasing. Linda would touch his arm accidentally, or find excuses to stand right next to him. She'd laugh at his jokes a little too loudly, and her eyes would linger longer than what felt comfortable. Sarah watched Mike shift uncomfortably under that attention. He'd smile politely, but there was something in the way he looked away, or how he sometimes tensed up, that made Sarah's stomach knot. And then there were the texts. One evening, Sarah was sitting next to Mike when his phone buzzed. Mike glanced at it and quickly locked the screen. It caught her attention, and curiosity got the better of her. Later, when Mike left the room, she picked up his phone to check something, and that's when she saw it. Messages from Aunt Linda. Flirty emojis, winks, kisses, that kind of thing. One message said something like, "Hey, handsome, we should grab drinks sometime, just for fun." Sarah's heart sank. She felt a mix of anger and disbelief. How could her own aunt be doing this? How could she make jokes like it was nothing when Mike clearly wasn't comfortable? She didn't say anything to Mike right away. He was just as caught off guard and didn't want to make a big deal. But Sarah knew she couldn't ignore it. Every time Linda sent those texts or made a funny comment in person, it chipped away at her trust and at Mike's peace of mind. Still, Sarah held on to hope that Linda would realize how inappropriate this was and stop. But as days went by, the late-night texts kept coming, and at family events, Linda kept playing that same game, laughing it off when anyone called her out. It was a delicate, painful kind of betrayal, not the kind you could just confront easily, especially when it was tangled up with family. So Sarah found herself stuck, watching her fiancé squirm under her aunt's unwanted attention, feeling powerless and wondering what to do next. Sarah spent a lot of restless nights turning the problem over in her mind. She wanted to protect Mike, yes, but she also didn't want to tear the family apart. Linda was still her aunt, after all. Even if she was acting out in ways no one could have expected, confronting her directly felt risky. Sarah knew Linda loved the spotlight and would probably just laugh it off or make a scene. And making a big deal in front of the whole family? That might only make things worse. Mike didn't want to get caught in the middle, and Sarah didn't want to create a divide right before her wedding. So, instead of jumping into a confrontation, Sarah chose a different path. She kept a close eye on Linda's behavior, carefully, collecting little pieces, texts, awkward moments, things that couldn't be ignored. She made sure Mike felt supported but also kept him out of the crossfire as much as she could. Then, something happened that shifted everything. Linda decided to throw herself a divorce party. You know the type. Glamorous, loud, full of champagne and flashing lights, all about celebrating her new single life. The kind of party where everyone's watching and the spotlight is hers. Sarah was invited to give a toast. At first, it felt strange. Was this really the place to bring up what was happening? But then she saw it for what it was. An opportunity. A chance to take control of the story and expose Linda's behavior without causing a family feud or turning into a public shouting match. She began quietly preparing her speech. Not a rant, not an attack, but a clever, careful way to shine a light on what Linda had been doing. Sarah wanted the truth to be heard in a way that everyone would understand, even if it was wrapped in compliments and laughter. Inside, she felt nervous. This wasn't easy, but there was also a quiet resolve growing inside her. If Linda thought she could get away with crossing lines and making Mike uncomfortable, she was about to find out she was wrong. So Sarah took a deep breath and got ready. The party was coming, and she had a plan. The night of the divorce party arrived, and the place was buzzing. Linda had gone all out. Glittering decorations, upbeat music, and a crowd of around 80 guests packed into the room. Friends, family, and acquaintances mingled, drinks in hand, all ready to celebrate Linda's new chapter. She looked radiant in a bold, shimmering dress that caught the light with every move, a clear signal that she was enjoying being the center of attention. Sarah stood quietly near the back at first, watching it all unfold. Mike was there too, doing his best to stay out of the spotlight, but clearly tense. Sarah could feel the weight of what she was about to do pressing on her chest, but she reminded herself why this moment mattered. When it was time, Sarah was called up to give her toast. The room hushed, glasses raised, eyes on her. She started gently, smiling warmly. "I want to raise a glass to Linda," she said, "to her bold confidence, her fearless spirit, and the courage it takes to start over. It's not easy to embrace freedom, especially after everything she's been through." People nodded, some smiling, caught up in the positive vibe. Linda's face lit up, thinking this was just another moment to bask in praise. Then Sarah shifted, her tone just a little. "You know, family is full of stories, some we laugh about and some we learn from. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about Linda's flirty phase." At that, Sarah hit a button on her phone. Suddenly, a series of voicemails played over the speakers, family members whispering behind closed doors, gossiping about Linda's recent behavior. The voices hinted at late-night messages, uncomfortable moments, and a vague but pointed mention of someone feeling uneasy around her advances. The room fell silent. Whispers bubbled up as eyes turned to Linda. Her face flushed bright red, and she looked around, trying to catch anyone's reaction. The weight of the truth was settling in, and Linda's carefully crafted image began to crack right there in front of everyone. Someone in the crowd pulled out their phone and started live tweeting the moment, and within minutes, the story was spreading beyond the party, turning Linda's flirtations into a cautionary tale for the whole family and beyond. Sarah stepped down from the microphone, heart pounding but calm. She had said what needed to be said without a single harsh word. The message was clear. No one crosses boundaries like that without consequences. And just like that, the tide had turned. After the toast, things shifted in a way no one really expected. But, maybe, deep down, everyone was waiting for. Linda's face stayed red for a long time, and the usual sparkle in her eyes seemed to dim. The room was thick with whispers, and you could feel the tension like a thick fog hanging over the party. Word traveled fast. One of the relatives had been live tweeting the whole thing, and by the next morning, the story was everywhere, at least within their small town. Linda became the subject of quiet gossip, a kind of cautionary tale about crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed, especially with family. But what mattered most to Sarah was what happened afterward. Linda stopped her advances completely. The texts to Mike stopped. The jokes disappeared. Mike was finally able to breathe easy again, and the awkwardness between him and Sarah's aunt melted away into an uneasy truce. And the wedding? Well, it went off without a hitch. Sarah and Mike walked down the aisle surrounded by friends and family who, despite the drama, were there to celebrate their love. There was a new sense of peace in the air, like a weight had been lifted. At future family gatherings, Linda kept a much lower profile. She wasn't quite the center of attention anymore, not with Sarah watching and the rest of the family quietly remembering that unforgettable toast. And while things weren't exactly perfect, there was a newfound respect for boundaries. Sometimes families have their messes, but every now and then, someone stands up quietly and changes the course without shouting or fighting. Sarah did just that. She protected what mattered most, and in doing so, reminded everyone that respect isn't optional, even when it comes from the people closest to you.